Welcome to the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show. Today is August 5th, 2021. This is our 64th episode. My name is Sunsara Taylor, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. We take the name of our show from a major speech given by the most important and radical political thinker and revolutionary leader in the world today, Bob Avakian, the architect of the new communism, a whole new framework for human emancipation. And this title speaks directly to the most urgent and pressing need facing global humanity, the need for a real revolution and nothing less. And this is what we bring you every week on this show: the understanding of the world, the strategic approach, the scientific methodology, the leadership of Bob Avakian, and direction for working together to make this revolution. Tonight we have an extremely special show for you. The entirety of our episode will be comprised of a major speech that Andy ZEE gave up at Revolution Books. It's our first episode recorded before a live audience. Revolution Books is in Harlem, New York. It's the intellectual, political, and cultural center of the movement for revolution. And the title of Andy's talk, delivered last night, is "Society is Being Ripped Apart. We are two countries sharing the same border. Why this is a rare time when revolution becomes possible. Reflections on Bob Avakian's "This is a Rare Time When Revolution Becomes Possible," why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. This talk from Andy ZEE draws from and invites you into two crucial documents that, for good reason, we have been rooting ourselves in here at the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. The first is a declaration and call to get organized now for a real revolution. And the second is a companion piece from Bob Avakian. This is a rare time when revolution becomes possible. Why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. The declaration and call was issued by the Revcoms. That's short for Revolutionary Communists. That's all of us who are followers of Bob Avakian and the new communism he has forged. And this piece makes the case plainly and boldly that only a revolution and nothing less can end the nightmare that humanity is facing. Only a revolution can put an end to the scourge of white supremacist terror and brutality rained down by the police and the prisons and more. Only a revolution and nothing less can break the hold of male supremacy and open up the path to shattering thousands of years of traditions' chains that have enslaved women and all oppression based on gender and sexual orientation. Only a revolution and nothing less can wrench humanity off the course we are on, driven by this system of capitalism, imperialism that is destroying our natural world. Only a real revolution and nothing less can bring us beyond a world bloodied by imperialist wars and crimes against humanity, and where millions and millions of people have their homelands destroyed and are turned into desperate refugees and migrants, fleeing only to be met by imperialist militarized borders, detention camps, and criminalization. But more than that, this piece, this declaration and call, makes the case that we are in a rare time right now when revolution becomes possible. And it goes into our greatest strengths in making this revolution, most of all the scientific leadership of Bob Avakian, and it provides concrete strategic guidance for how all of us can get to work now, becoming organizers for this revolution to ripen and be in position to seize on it. This companion piece from Bob Avakian, "This is a Rare Time When Revolution Becomes Possible," speaks with substance and clarity to the two questions in its title: why this is so, and how we seize on this rare opportunity. We urge you to go to the website revcom.us and read both these documents. Read them more than once. Discuss them, work with them, spread them, take them up as a guide to act together to change the reality we confront. When the episode is over, and in the description below, we will give you ways to be part of this, organized with others, online and in real life around the country. And tonight's presentation from Andy ZEE is the first major public event taking up these works, working with key questions in them, and inviting you into that process. And we are airing it tonight to further this process nationwide. So a final word before we get started. We want to give a special welcome to all of our new first-time viewers tonight. You are definitely in the right place. And we want to give a special greeting and shout out to everybody who is watching together tonight in organized watch parties, gathering together with others to watch and discuss the RNL show. This is a simple and crucial way of becoming an organizer for this revolution. Do not underestimate how significant what you are doing is. What you will hear tonight is going to spark your thinking, spark discussion, and spark questions. When it is over, we urge you to leave a comment below with your thoughts, your ideas, your questions, what's provoked by you, by what you hear. And we here at the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, together with those at the website revcom.us, which we produce this show in collaboration with, we'll be sifting through what you write, we'll be learning from it, and we'll be speaking to some of the questions you pose in episodes going forward. So with that, let's go up to Revolution Books in Harlem for the talk from Andy Zee. Society is being ripped apart. We are two countries sharing the same border. Why this is a rare time when revolution becomes possible, a talk by Andy Zee, and reflections on Bob Avakian's This is a Rare Time when revolution becomes possible, why that is so, and how we seize on this rare opportunity.
All right, welcome to Revolution Books, New York City.
Yeah.
And welcome to all the viewers of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show on August 5th, 2021. This is the RNL show's 64th episode and the first in front of a live audience anywhere. And what better place to do that than at Revolution Books? There are dreams that startle you awake, nightmares that leave you with a dread of the night and a haunting of the day. There are dreams, too, beautiful in technicolor, where you feel fully alive with joy and purpose, dreams that motivate aspirations of freedom from all that oppresses and represses, a living not downpressed by this life-sucking machine of the system that destroys people and thwarts their ability to be fully human. A little over a year ago, we saw in the streets of this country and around the world millions of young people born in this, the 21st century. Youth resplendent in their diversity of race, nationality, and gender, taking to the streets, struggling for a dream of a world free from racial oppression and its concentrated expression in the murder of black and brown people by police just for being who they are. And there's dreams from the 1960s that still resonate with the potential to be ignited again. Hopes and dreams, and yes, there were some schemes for a world rejecting the white, madmen, Jim Crow, apartheid, patriarchal, anti-gay, oppressive, murderous, stultifying U.S. society. A fierce and a liberating desire. A new culture and ferocious struggle for a world of equality and liberation. A world, yes, of peace, love, and understanding. Revolution was in the air. This was a time when there were revolutionary societies and revolutionary struggles. Revolutions that were ultimately turned back. But seeds were planted. And there are dreams of a people brought from Africa in chains, and their descendants have endured for 402 years to be free from this murderous bondage. Free from the life-stealing legacy of slavery that still suffocates and strangles this nation and is manifest in every sphere of black people's lives right down to today. With this serried, obscene expression in the cold eyes of that pig, Derek Chauvin, stealing the life from George Floyd. But song and struggle for freedom endures. Dreams to be free of all that oppresses have been written in verse and prose, theorized in scholarship and revolutionary theory, wished for and fought for and died for. But rare is the time when there is a potential for such dreams to become real. This is such a time. Why? Because those who rule this country are locked in bitter struggle with each other over how to hold their country together, over how to keep their whole setup going, a system that we live under, capitalism, imperialism. Because they are locked in an irreconcilable struggle over how to cohere and enforce their rule over people here and around the world whom they oppress and repress. Because they are divided over how to maintain the U.S. as the top power in the world. The deep divisions at the very top of this society are tearing open the shroud of the myth that America is the land of freedom and opportunity, that the USA is the world's good guys. The reality that those who rule and their political representatives can no longer rule this country in the way they have in the past could lead to a terrible future, if there is a future at all. Yet, at the same time, this very fraught situation contains its opposite. The sharp divide at the top of society also holds the possibility of leading to something very good, but only if we act together and struggle for people like all of you listening to this to go out and struggle hard with masses of people to get with the Revcoms, to get organized now for a radically different future where we, the masses of people in our millions, could go to work on overcoming all the divisions and inequalities and injustices in the world today. This really could be a future made possible by a real revolution. And you are in the right place to learn why that is. And making it so, again, depends on you being a part of what will perhaps be the greatest struggle and achievement in history. A revolution in this country. Tonight you are in Revolution Books, the political and cultural center of the Revcoms, or you are watching this talk on the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. It is the Revcoms. It is the Revcoms who have issued a declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution. And it is the leader of the Revcoms and the foremost political thinker and revolutionary in the world today, Bob Avakian, B.A., who has just published a deep, provocative, challenging, and inspiring pamphlet. This is a rare time when revolution becomes possible. Why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. This work, which is a companion to the Declaration, a call, is our topic, and more, it is our purpose this evening. To challenge and to inspire you to get a copy, to read it, to grapple with it, to take it out to others, and to get down with the Revcoms, online and for the real. Let's be straight here. Calling for people to get organized now for an actual revolution is momentous. It is the most daring call that could be made. Serious. It requires sacrifice. It is complex. It requires a thoroughly scientific approach to deal with all the complexities and difficulties that will be encountered. Revolution requires the most consistently scientific leadership, and we have that leadership in Bob Avakian. Let's not talk falsely now tonight. Maybe you came to the bookstore tonight having heard the carping, the online snark, the slander in the street against BA and the Revcoms. In short, all the bullshit that you hear from people who are either ignorant or complacent, groveling for their pathetic place in this cesspool of a system and struggling for you to do the same. And let's say it like it is. They don't know shit about the problem that humanity faces or what the actual solution to that is. Bob Avakian has done work, path-breaking work, to advance the scientific method and approach to revolution for the emancipation of all humanity, and that we call the new communism. They haven't even read this work. Bob Avakian has answered historically vexing questions that others haven't even thought of. The Declaration and Call puts it like this: there has never been a leader like this in this country, and there is no other leader in the world like this today. We cannot afford not to follow this leadership if we ever want to get free and put an end to this madness. So, we are on the cusp of a moment in history when the two opposed dreams with which I began this evening, the nightmare of the worst that humanity can be, including our species' possible extinction, and on the other hand, a dream where all of humanity could truly flourish, a radically different and far more liberatory world. These two dreams, these two realities, stand arrayed against each other. And the future really does hang in the balance. What we do will determine which one prevails. These are not just poetic words, mere metaphor to inspire. This is real, and we're going to go there tonight. We have to. These are the stakes. That you're here in Revolution Books or watching the RNL show is a very positive step. But let's be real. Let's be real now. Oh shit, what's going on in back? All right, you turned around as you should. And hopefully you would get out of the way if something was really happening and hopefully help others to do so. But are you confronting heads up, with eyes wide open, the real deadly situation that is bearing down on all of us? Are you confronting that? Are you turning around as quickly for that as you did for something maybe coming through that doorway? Or are you turning away from the dread that all the vile monsters of America-KKK society has summoned up from the basement? That Trump and the Republican Fascist Party and their masters and backers in a section of the ruling class have summoned up from every nook and cranny, and they're not gone. Are you pissed off and griping that these anti-scientific know-nothings led by Trump are spreading disease and death? But you don't want to think about the larger reality that they are hardening their forces and preparing again for an all-out assault to attain power. Have you let yourself be deluded by the Biden-Harris babbling of bipartisanship and their own liberal version of Make America Great Again? Did Biden dull you in his inauguration speech with this? Here's the deal. We can see each other, not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is not peace, only bitterness and fury. No nation, only a state of chaos. But let's not us shirk from the truth. Let's put it all on the table. Too many bought into the false and phony hope of Obama's change you can believe in, only to see no fundamental progress, no fundamental change to any of the outrages that people care about, from police murder to the continuing and growing obscene, insufferable life-stealing inequality. Instead, what we did get is that the resistance movements that had been growing during the reign of George W. Bush became muted by phony hope and honeyed words, lulled by his image and the hip-hop playlists and the surface shine that had all too many progressive people and black people lulled into thinking that change had come. But for the white supremacist Christian fascist movement that had been organizing and growing in strength and virulence over the decades since the 1960s, a black president was more than they could abide. In Trump, they recognized someone who, like Hitler, gave unfiltered vent to all their vile grievances, a lying pig who would shatter all the rules and norms to cement into place a fully white supremacist, patriarchal, xenophobic, bellicose, American first fascist society. And really, what is the main thing now being achieved by Biden and the top Democrats today, who are calling and working to get things done with the Republican fascists? Again, lowering the temperature and demobilizing those who stand for justice, who rightly took to the streets in righteous rage against continuing police murder and brutality, against the lack of future for our youth and the rampaging inequality and the continued destruction of the environment. They've got you passive. They've got you, as Cornel West says, adjusted to injustice. They've got you corralled into becoming them, which should not be where you want to be. Over 16 years ago, Bob Avakian said, in a quote that's now in the book, Basics from the Talks and Writings from Bob Avakian, quote number 312, "If you try to make the Democrats be what they are not and never will be, you will end up being more like what they actually are." BA, in this rare time when revolution becomes possible, why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity, takes the blinders off, shines a penetrating light of a scientific method and approach to understanding the problem that we face. He illuminates the potential and the road to a radically different and far better future through a real revolution. There's plenty of horror that people here and around the world are going through today. And you may have a sense that something far worse is to come. And we get this. But this cannot be a pull to recoil and turn away from it. Do not go there, for if you go there, it will only fuel a greater horror. What Bob Avakian BA brings is hope, but on a scientific foundation. Confronting reality as it actually is, objectively, not just how it feels to you or what you wish it to be, but getting to the roots and the dynamics of the problem we face. Bob Avakian hacks open the potential for something positive and liberating that really could be. Bob Avakian, in his New Year's statement, quotes the Miami Herald columnist Leonard Pitts Jr., who wrote of the 2020 election, quote, "It strips bare all the glossy claims about who we are as a country, underscoring the fact that in a meaningful sense, we are not one country at all anymore, but two sharing the same border. The last time this happened, with the Civil War, it took 4 years and 750,000 lives to force us back to some semblance of oneness. Even then, the seams of the fracture were always visible," end quote. That's from Leonard Pitts of the Miami Herald. This is a window into the basic answer to why revolution has become possible now. A declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution puts it straight. Quote, "The crisis and deep divisions in society now can only be resolved through radical means of one kind or another, either radically reactionary, murderously oppressive and destructive means, or radically emancipatory, revolutionary means." And that reality, that these divisions in the ruling class down through the two countries with one border, has now given rise to a political situation where there is the possibility of a revolutionary situation that could be ripened, and that holds the possibility of overthrowing this system with all the unnecessary misery that it causes finally cast off. But let's be clear on what an actual revolution is. The Declaration says, quote, "A revolution means a force of millions, drawn from many different parts of society and organized for an all-out fight to overthrow this system and replace it with a radically different and much better economic and political system, a socialist system, based on meeting the needs of the people and carrying forward the fight for a communist world where there will finally be an end everywhere to the exploitation, oppression, and destruction of the environment that is built into this system of capitalism imperialism. Anything less than this revolution will completely fail to deal with the root of all the problems or lead to the actual solution," end quote. Now, to go deeper into this, we're going to show a short video prepared by the R&L Revolution Nothing Less crew. This short film makes 3 points that set the stage for understanding why we need a revolution, what it is, and why it's possible now. The video starts where Bob Avakian begins this new piece, "This is a Rare Time When Revolution Becomes Possible," with the first section titled, "Some Basic Truths," in which he paints a basic, brief picture of the system that we live under, capitalism, imperialism. Then, in the second 2 parts of the video, we're going to draw from the Declaration a call to get organized now for a real revolution, to illustrate, number 1, the potential for this revolution in all different kinds of people who hate and have acted against the deep, hellacious problems of this system. and for which it has no fundamental solution. And number two, in this video, we briefly bring to life the sharpening conflict in the ruling class as concentrated in the sharp divide between their political representatives in the Republican Fascist Party and in the Democratic Party. So we're going to go to that video right now, and then I'm going to come back and say some more about it.
From Bob Avakian, revolutionary leader, author of The New Communism. This is a rare time when revolution becomes possible, why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. First, some basic truths. Point 1. We live under a system, the system of capitalism, imperialism. Capitalism is an economic and political system of exploitation and oppression, and imperialism refers to the worldwide nature of this system. This system causes tremendous suffering for people all over the world, and it poses a growing threat to the very existence of humanity. This is a system dominated by capitalist corporations, banks, and other financial institutions controlling vast sums of money, all of which is based on exploiting people, masses of people here and billions of people throughout the world, including huge numbers of children. These capitalists are locked in cutthroat competition with each other, and this drives them to penetrate every part of the world, especially the poorer countries, in order to exploit people even more viciously, while leaving many people without a way to work at all within the regular, formal economy. This system has white supremacy and male supremacy built into it. This system continually causes situations where life becomes extremely desperate and often very dangerous for growing numbers of people in their home countries, forcing them to uproot themselves and migrate across countries and continents, and then treats them as criminals when they seek asylum or relief from unbearable conditions. This system leads to wars to conquer nations and people, wars for control of key parts of the world, and potentially even wars between nuclear-armed, capitalist imperialist countries, fighting to determine which will be the most powerful oppressor in the world, if anything is left of this world after such a war. This system is rapidly destroying the global environment. All this is reality, and no one can escape this reality. Either we radically change it in a positive way, or everything will be changed in a very negative way. From point 2 of the short version of the Revcoms, a declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution. We have seen the potential for revolution powerfully demonstrated just last summer, when millions of people of all races and genders, all over this country and all around the world, rose up together against racist oppression and police murder. We have seen this potential in the mass outpourings of women in countries all over the world, refusing to put up with being abused and degraded. This potential is also revealed in the deep distress being expressed by scientists and millions of ordinary people about the continually worsening climate crisis and the threat this poses to the future of humanity. A crisis this system cannot solve, but can only make worse. But with all this, right now only a small number of us have recognized the need for this revolution and are acting to make it happen. So there is crucial work that must be done now to win people to understand the need for revolution and act to make it real. To turn the potential for revolution into a powerful movement and organized force for an actual revolution. From point 2 of the long version of the Revcoms, a declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution. This is one of those rare times and circumstances when revolution becomes possible. Not just because this system is always a horror, but because the crisis and deep divisions in society now can only be resolved through radical means of one kind or another. Either radically reactionary, murderously oppressive and destructive means, or radically emancipating, revolutionary means. Those who have ruled over us for so long with their Republican and Democratic parties are now caught up in bitterly fighting each other over how to hold this country together, keep this system going, enforce its rule over the people it exploits and oppresses, and maintain this country as the world's top dog oppressive power. The Republicans are moving to exercise this rule through fascism, discarding the pretense of democracy for all, relying on naked brutality and trampling on people's rights to enforce undisguised, aggressive male supremacy.
You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy.
White supremacy, xenophobia, hatred of foreigners, and the persecution of immigrants, especially from non-white countries. And crude America First chauvinism. The Democrats are trying to keep things together with more disguise and deception, with the claim that what exists in this country is a great democracy, representing the will of the people.
Opening doors of opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of America.
And for this reason, it deserves to be and needs to be the most powerful force in the world.
I will never hesitate to use force to defend the vital interests of America, the American people.
But in reality, both of these ruling class parties are working to maintain the violent, oppressive power, the dictatorship of this capitalist imperialist system, with all the horrors for humanity this involves.
All right, let's go. Part 2. So let's step back for a moment to the first of the 3 segments that you just saw in the video, which presented a devastating picture of what the capitalist imperialist system means today, including the destruction of the environment with the desperate and dangerous flight of millions of refugees, the white supremacy and patriarchy that's built into the system and built into the foundation of this country. It also touches on the system's relentless drive to war. All of this underscores the essential and basic understanding that, quote, the system we live under causes tremendous suffering for people all over the world, and it poses a growing threat to the future of humanity, end quote. And again, do not shirk from this. Either this is reality, and no one can escape this reality. Either we radically change it in a positive way, or everything will be changed in a very negative way. If you disagree, if you think that things are bad but not that bad, perhaps even getting better, make the case and then let's get into it and determine what is objectively true. But again, don't let yourself say, this is too upsetting to me. I choose not to think about or act in accordance with this reality. But look, to really understand why capitalism cannot be reformed, go to revcom.us and read an article titled Commodities and Capitalism and the Terrible Consequences of This System and the basic explanation of this by Bob Avakian. It's on revcom.us. The exploitation and oppression of the capitalist system is governed through a system of capitalist democracy or bourgeois democracy that enforces its oppressive system through all the institutions of official power and violence, the Congress and the presidency, the courts, and especially the police and the military. The last segment in the video Quoting a declaration, a call said, the Democrats, in opposing the Republican fascists, are doing so by trying to keep this oppressive system going by appealing to those in their base with honeyed words of freedom and justice for all, while making minor concessions to a few, while their system continues to grind up lives of billions of people and destroy the planet. The declaration draws this crucial understanding. In reality, both of these ruling class parties are working to maintain the violent, oppressive power, the dictatorship of this capitalist imperialist system, with all the horrors for humanity that this involves, end quote. And Bob Avakian says this in This Is a Rare Time, quote, no matter what promises these politicians make, and no matter what schemes people try to come up with to make things more just or equal under this system, none of this can change the basic nature of this system and the way it has to operate because of its very nature. And the way it has to operate because of its very nature. This is why, as I read earlier from the Declaration, a call, it says, quote, anything less than this revolution will completely fail to deal with the root of all the problems or lead to the actual solution. On this foundation, let's get in further to why a real revolution has become possible now. Recall that an actual revolution involves, quote, nothing less than overthrowing this system, defeating and disarming and dismantling the murderous armed power and other institutions that enforce this system. Just take a second or two to think about what kind of situation you would need, what kind of situation would have to exist to be able to make an actual revolution that does that in the most powerful imperialist country in human history. As I said earlier, this is momentous. This is serious. And This Is a Rare Time, Bob Avakian plainly puts forth what is necessary for a revolutionary situation. Quote, a revolution becomes possible, even in a powerful country like this, when three main factors have been brought into being. Number one, a crisis in society and government so deep, so disruptive of the usual way of things, that those who have ruled over us for so long can no longer do so in the normal way that people have been conditioned to accept. Let me read it again. A crisis in society and government so deep and so disruptive of the usual way of things that those who have ruled over us for so long can no longer do so in the normal way that people have been conditioned to accept. Number two, a revolutionary people in the millions and millions with their allegiance to this system broken, and they're determined to fight for a more just society greater than their fear of the violent repression of this system. And number three, an organized revolutionary force made up of continually growing numbers of people from among the most oppressed, but also from many other parts of society. A force which is grounded in and is working systematically to apply the most scientific approach to building for and then carrying out revolution, which is increasingly looked to by masses of people to lead them to bring about the radical change that is urgently needed, end quote. Right after this, Bob Avakian says, these factors for revolution obviously do not exist right now. But this is one of the rare times when these factors for revolution could be brought into being. And the first criteria is the key to what has now changed that opens up the possibility that a revolutionary situation could be ripened. And ripened is a very important word that a declaration and a call uses. Because a revolutionary situation is not something that just comes about automatically. It must be fought for. The revolution is not a matter of two sides lining up, the good guys over here, good guys will be over here, or actually for you guys, the good guys will be over here and the bad guys over here. And then the ref comes out and blows a whistle and the thing starts. That's not what a revolution is. We have to work to bring about the second of these two criteria, where masses of people lose their allegiance to the system and their determination to fight for a more just society is greater than their fear. And there is a growing influential force, organized, that is looked to and that can lead them. These two factors, as they mature, will then impact that divided ruling class who, through the unfolding events, can be seen and become more and more illegitimate in the eyes of masses of people. Getting to that situation, where a successful revolution could be launched, requires that organized force is influencing and ultimately leading millions in relation to what other forces in society and the world are doing, as well as to unforeseen events, including acts of nature. For example, while it wasn't a revolution, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, hundreds of cities rose up in righteous rebellions, and the Black Panther Party, that's the time when it grew by leaps and bounds faster than they could even deal with. It wasn't just what they were doing, it was larger events in the world that provoked that response. Revolution is a complex process that requires scientific leadership. And we have that leadership, as I said, in Bob Avakian, who has scientifically studied the strategic questions of preparing for and then making revolution, for how to prepare the ground, which means the political terrain, how things are shaping up in society, prepare the people, and prepare the leading forces, the vanguard for revolution. And he's also developed the strategy for how to lead millions of people when the time is right to go all out in an actual struggle for power, and then to win that struggle. This is elaborated in BA's books, his pamphlets, his films that are available right here in Revolution Books, as well as online at revcom.us. But let's take some time, a little bit of time anyway, to briefly get into how this sharp divide is brewing today and how that reveals the kind of crisis in society and government that is now and which will only grow sharper, deeper, and more disruptive of the normal way in which the society has been ruled, leading to a further intensified conflict both at the top of the government and down through different sections of the people. Think about the fact that the overwhelming majority of the base and the leadership of the Republican Fascist Party fanatically believe that the 2020 election was rigged, the biggest fraud and theft in history. Many of them say and they believe that Donald Trump is going to be reinstated. And I think some of them think it's going to be in a matter of weeks. But this is part of a whole package of lies and lunatic conspiracy theories. But note this, the more far-fetched, the more this fuels their cause. This is not just talk, but in the Republican-controlled state legislators, they are passing law after law that effectively gives these fascists the right and the legal means to overturn any election that doesn't go their way. While at the same time, they are further stacking the deck by disenfranchising Black and Latino voters. There is a method to this madness. The more they sow doubt on the election, or in fact, any fact that contradicts their objectives, the more dust they throw in people's eyes, it all leads to that, well, who's to say? I don't know what's true. And you know how Trump plays it, well, a lot of people say, a lot of people are saying, and he fills in the blank with whatever he wants people to believe, whether or not anybody said it besides his sick brain. Thus, the groundwork is laid. The state legislatures say it's not really clear who won, who knows what really happened, and then the fascist-dominated legislature could come up and institute and clear up the confusion by installing their fascist. And in the election of the president, because of the legacy of slavery, a contested election could ultimately be thrown to the House of Representatives, dominated by Republican states, or to the federal courts, which is dominated by the Republican Trump-appointed justices, and then the stage is set for a kind of legal coup. This is in the works right now. It's already happening. The The work is being done, the laws are being passed, the structures are there. But look, they have been and they are preparing for a more serious type of coup. Look at the January 6th Trump-led attempted coup at the Capitol to stop the certification of the 2020 election. The Republican Fascist Party, their media, and the tens of millions of followers are speaking out of three contradictory sides of their large and foul mouths, saying first, it was peaceful. Second, it was really Antifa and Black Lives Matter with Nancy Pelosi to blame. And third, that it was a just and patriotic event with Ashley Babbitt, a martyr at the hands of a black Democratic police officer. The key point here, the conclusion to draw from the illogic of these lies, is that January 6th is only a foreshadowing of what is to come. The Republican fascist movement that is now more battle-hardened, more lunatic, more aggrieved, more openly racist and xenophobic than ever, if that is possible, and it is. Members of the editorial board of Refuse Fascism, of which I'm a part, called this attempted coup on January 6th a dress rehearsal. And more recently, the conservative editor of the Atlantic Monthly called it a prelude of what is to come. But what about the Democratic opposition? Biden gave an impassioned speech decrying this. But Biden and the Senate leadership are actually focused on reaching across the aisle, working with Republicans to rebuild the U.S. infrastructure, but largely to benefit big business, increase U.S. competitiveness in the world, as well as national defense. But this only serves to legitimate the fascists and leaves the Democratic base, the decent people, perhaps most of you, who care about injustice, passive and demoralized and paralyzed as to what you can and should do. In the House of Representatives, the Democrats are right now dramatically exposing much of the reality of the January 6th coup attempt. But they could not even get the Republicans to agree to objectively investigate the first outright assault on the Capitol since the British burnt the place down in 1814. And when Texas Democratic state legislators fled to Washington to prevent a vote in Texas on a new fascist election law, Biden would not even meet with them. All of this is vivid illustration that this divide will not be bridged, but will grow more extreme. Bob Avakian writes, quote, "These divisions among the ruling powers and in the larger society cannot be resolved within the framework that has existed and has held things together for nearly 150 years, since shortly after the end of the Civil War, which led to the abolition of slavery. They cannot be resolved on the basis of capitalist democracy that has been the normal means of capitalist rule, which in reality is a form of dictatorship for so long," end quote. Concessions or reforms in response to the struggles of women, LGBTQ people, Black and Latino people were granted as a result of the struggles of the 1960s and the need for the rulers of this country from both parties to be able to promote the U.S. as the leader of the free world. Bob Avakian points out that these reforms were always resisted by the Republican Party, but the Republican Party has now become convinced, quote, that these changes have now gone too far, that they threaten to destroy what has held this country together and enabled it to dominate the world. And the Republicans have become a fascist party, a party based on open and aggressive white supremacy, male supremacy, and other oppressive relations. A party convinced that only it deserves to rule, adopting what amounts to an undisguised capitalist dictatorship ready to use violence not only against masses of people, but also against its rivals in the ruling class, end quote. This fascist movement is moving fast to radically change the lives of millions of people. Women's right to abortion is close to being effectively, if not completely, outlawed in most of the country, with new state laws passed every week, and with an anti-woman, anti-abortion majority of Trump appointees on the US Supreme Court, this is a very dangerous time. And what is the Democratic Party and the official women's movement that follows the Democrats doing in response to this? Preparing to figure out how to live with and work with this new Handmaid's Tale reality, instead of resisting with all they've got. Here, adjusting to injustice doesn't begin to get close to it. It doesn't capture the outrage of what amounts to a cold indifference to the death, to state coerced forced motherhood, which is nothing less than the theft of women's ability and their basic right to determine their own lives and their own future. And what does it mean that these fascists will use violence to enforce their program? Here's one example. In state after state, these Republican fascists, citizens, meaning in reality fascist lunatic, fascist thugs, can now legally run down protesters who block a road in peaceful protest with their cars and trucks. In Texas, there is a bill pending that any fascist, again, any citizen, can sue a woman who gets or attempts an abortion, as well as the medical staff who perform it. This is the legitimizing of a force of stormtroopers outside of and above any legal process determining fact, and thus of the rule of law. This is very important. This is what fascism is. This is the essence of it. Yes, I know there's things of 13 characteristics, 10 characteristics, there are lots of book sales, but the essence of it is open terroristic dictatorship employing violence of the state against the masses of people and discarding all democratic forms of rule and civil liberties, and employing extra-legal thugs to enforce this and terrorize. All this only foreshadows what it will mean. It is only a hint of what it will look like when the rulers can no longer govern in the normal way that people have been conditioned to accept. In This Is a Rare Time, Bob Avakian goes into why the Republicans have certain significant advantages in the struggle between these two ruling class parties. So that's why you got to get your own pamphlet. Because tonight I've only touched on the depth of analysis that's in this piece. Yet there is one more critical point I want to read from This Is a Rare Time that paints a vivid picture of how this situation will develop that indicates the potential for us to seize the time. Quote, "As this situation develops and the ruling class is more and more unable to rule in the old way, society and daily life for the masses of people from different parts of society can become increasingly unsettled and chaotic, with frequent disruptions of the normal way things have been. And as the normal way of society has been ruled is failing to hold things together, and society is increasingly being ripped apart, this can shake people's belief that the way things have always been is the only way that things could be. It can make people more opening to question. In a real sense, it can force people to question the way things have been and whether or not they have to stay that way. All this is more likely to happen if the revolutionary forces are out among the people, shining a light on the deeper reality of what is happening and why, and bringing out that there is an alternative to living this way." End quote. There is an alternative to living this way. And here, what is the positive that can come out of this situation is not only revolution to be rid of this oppressive system and its institutions, but bringing into being a radically new and far better society. The vision and blueprint for this new society is written in the Constitution for a New Socialist Republic in North America, authored by B.A. Nowhere else in any actual or proposed founding or guiding document of any government is there any society like this, with a radically new socialist economy that would meet the needs of the people while overcoming all the forms of savage inequalities from the old society, while also providing for the most extensive civil rights and dissent, intellectual and cultural ferment, an educational system that pursues the truth, and a society that is going to work on saving the planet, and most fundamentally, working towards and supporting revolutionary struggle for the emancipation of humanity throughout the world. So this talk tonight is focused on the first of two questions posed in the title of this article. This is a rare time when revolution becomes possible, why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. This is to provoke and to compel you to go to the work yourself and get into the second decisive part of this piece, which digs into how to work now to seize on this rare opportunity. Regular viewers of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show are going to be familiar with the following critical piece of guidance from a declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution. This goes into how we get started today in organizing these forces. This program, what I've said today, and the pamphlet from Bob Avakian should make this all the more urgent and more on target. But here's how we get started. Organizing people into this revolution means reaching out to all sorts of people. Not just where there are protests and rebellions against oppression and injustice, but everywhere throughout society. Spreading the word about revolution, and this is important, getting people together in real life and online to grapple with why an actual revolution is necessary, what such a revolution involves, and what kind of society this is aiming for. This will enable people who are new to the revolution to themselves become organizers for this revolution and to recruit more and more people to do the same. And on this basis, and through the growing ranks of the revolution acting together in an increasingly powerful force, it will be possible to attract and organize the necessary numbers and build up the necessary strength to be in position to do what needs to be done. Taking up and getting with the Revcoms, BA says, quote, is the responsibility of everyone who recognizes the profound need for revolution and the rare possibility in a time like this to actually make a revolution, to wage a tireless and at times fierce struggle to win more and more people, to make a radical rupture with the confining and the degrading terms of this system, and to take up and act on the revolutionary orientation and motivation that is put forward in a declaration and call. But BA also cuts deeper, waging a pointed and sharp struggle with the thinking and harmful ways that different strata of people trapped within the dog-eat-dog individualist terms of this system. More, he contrasts these mental traps and dead ends with the inspiring outlook and the life of being part of something truly worth living for. And he has some polemics that he begins with this. Instead of saying, staying in your lane and going for self, while this system is moving to even more decisively crush any hope for a world worth living in, people need to be looking at the bigger picture, focusing on the greater interests of humanity and the possibility of a far better world, and acting to make this a reality. And bringing these first reflections of mine to a conclusion on this new piece, I want to end with this. We should recognize the historic momentousness of what a declaration, a call puts forth, and the accompanying lifeline of clarity, argument, and direction. In Bob Avakian's This is a Rare Time When Revolution Becomes Possible, why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. And fired with a scientific understanding of what really could be, let's struggle hard for masses of people to take this up themselves with determination and daring. And let's reach out to everyone who can't stand this world the way it is, who is sick and tired of so many people being treated as less than human, who knows that the claim of liberty and justice for all is a cruel lie, and who is righteously enraged that injustice and equality go on and on and on, despite false promises and honeyed words from people in power or those seeking power. To everyone who agonizes where things are headed and the fact that to be young now means to be denied a decent future, or any future at all. To everyone who has ever dreamed about something much better or even wondered whether that is possible. Everyone who hungers for a world without oppression, exploitation, poverty, and destruction of the environment. Reaching out to everyone who has a heart to fight for something that is really worth fighting for. Seize this rare time and be a part of this revolution. Thank you.
That was Andy Zee, the host of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, speaking up in Harlem at Revolution Books in New York City last night. He was drawing from and inviting you into these two key works. Issued by the Revcoms, a declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution, and the companion piece issued more recently from Bob Avakian. This is a rare time when revolution becomes possible. Why that is so, and how to seize on this rare opportunity. We miss Andy here on set, but we are so proud of him and very happy to be able to share that speech from him with you tonight. That is our episode, but before we close out, as he made clear in the speech, this was an invitation. So here are some ways for you to get further into this. First of all, go to the website revcom.us, download and read these two documents. Get into them. Discuss them with others, wrangle with them, and print them out and spread them. Get these everywhere. This is a big part of organizing for this revolution. Also, share with us your thinking that was sparked, the questions you might have off of what you heard. You can write to us at therevcoms@gmail.com or leave a question or a comment in the comment section right below this video. Third, spread the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show. Spread it on social media and online. Spread it in real life. Gather friends and others to watch it together. Again, watching this show regularly every Thursday night. New episodes at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. Gathering and watching this together with others, discussing this, is a big part of getting organized and becoming an organizer of others for this revolution. And finally, we invite you to sign up to be part of monthly discussions of these documents and of this revolution online through Zoom. You can write to us at therevcoms@gmail.com, or you should watch our website, revcom.us, and our social media at the Revcoms for notices about these monthly Zoom meetings, as well as in-person meetings of the Revolution Club, monthly meetings in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and how you can become part of that. So with that, on behalf of myself and the whole RNL Revolution Nothing Less crew, I want to say good night, and we'll see you next week.